tell you that, it's corporations and businesses that create jobs. You know, that old theory, trickle-down economics. That has been tried. That has failed. It has failed rather spectacularly.
There she is, Hillary Clinton in all her radical leftist economic glory. Joining us on the Malzberg panel, we have Democratic strategist, Newsmax analyst, and president of Sheinkopf Communications, Hank Sheinkopf, and Newsmax contributor, National Review columnist, John Fund. And let me start with you, John. Were you surprised that she would say such a thing when, she's going to have to explain it eventually?
Well, I know that Hillary is trying to channel the Elizabeth Warren vote, and that sounds like an awful lot like both Barack Obama and Elizabeth Warren's take on events. But I think it's a mistake because I know what she was trying to say, but it didn't come out that way. And, if businesses and corporations don't create jobs, I have a simple question: who does? Now, I know government can create some jobs in its own employment, but that's about less than 10% of our workforce. So I think it's a blunder, not a big blunder, but I can guarantee you we're going to be hearing that quote a couple years from now if she's the nominee, and maybe even if she's just running in the primaries.
Yeah, Hank, big mistake? How do you rate the level of mistakenness there?
Level of mistakenness, Steve, is very high. Bad move. Wouldn't be said if she weren't in Massachusetts trying to grab ground from Elizabeth Warren, who people keep saying is her competitor. The truth is Hillary hasn't been working very well as an idea in Iowa. She didn't do well there. This may work in Massachusetts, but around the country, as John said, people are remembering this for quite some time.
Well, Hank, who do you think she was insinuating creates jobs? Just government?
I think that the Barack Obama line is government is the one that does it. Government creates roads, therefore small businesses function because government
so you didn't build this?
That's the you didn't build it. And by the way, in the state of Massachusetts, what's left of those who haven't left for New Hampshire yet, they kind of feel the same way.
We got one more from Hillary here. I just want to play it real quick. She elaborates and kind of brings up her husband, which she tends to do, trying to harken back to his administration. Here we go.
One of the things my husband says when people say, well, what did you bring to Washington? He said, well, I brought arithmetic. And part of it was he demonstrated why trickle-down should be consigned to the trash bin of history. More tax cuts for the top and for companies that ship jobs overseas, while taxpayers and voters are stuck paying the freight, just doesn't add.
All right, John, is she going to be able, because she's done this repeatedly, is she going to be able to insinuate that if she's elected, we'll have the same economic prosperity that her husband had, mainly because, in part, not only, well, the whole internet boom was under his watch, but, I mean, is she going to get away with that?
Well, let me speak in Bill Clinton's defense. There were two Clinton administrations. The first 2 years, which were a large tax increase and the disastrous Hillary Care health care plan. Then the Republicans took over control of Congress in 1994, and Bill Clinton became reasonable. He kept his principles, but he negotiated. And it was Bill Clinton who signed into law one of the largest capital gains taxes in American history, and that actually brought in more revenue than it cost the government in the lower rates. So if you want to talk about trickle-down economics not working, Bill Clinton presided over a capital gains tax cut that worked.
Yeah, Hank?
In disclosure, I worked for President Clinton. We lived in an era of prosperity. Americans were very happy. Interest rates were low. People bought houses. It was a pretty good time. So Senator Clinton, former Secretary of State Clinton, has an obligation as a candidate to try to link her name to her husband's name as often as possible. Why? To remind people the way it was, and it was pretty damn good.
All right, let me ask you, bringing up Elizabeth Warren, Hank, do you think that she is going to run? I mean, she keeps opening and closing the door a little bit.
Why not? Depends who's in the field, depends who's on the other side. A lot can happen between now and 2016.
Well, would she go up against Hillary, though?
Why not? If Hillary's in the center, she's on the left, and the Democratic Party has moved to the left, depending upon conditions at the time. Steve, the real issue will be, and I think John might agree with this, is the outcome of this election in November coming up just a week away. That'll tell you a lot about who's going to be running for president, who's going to be doing what, and what the field might look like.
John?
Now, Steve, if the Democrats have an historic defeat, we don't know if that happens, but if they do, I'll tell you what normally happens to a political party. It goes back to its base and its roots.
Right.
In other words, it turns left. Remember, the Republican Party continued to move to the right even after Goldwater's defeat. So I think if the Democratic Party continues to move to the left, Hillary has other problems other than being too centrist. She is old news. She's been around a long time.
Interesting theory. We're coming back with John Fund and Hank Sheinkopf for part 2. Don't go away.